This is the Goal Talk Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Goal Talk Podcast. This is episode 11. Today, we're interrupting our schedule of content for season 1 to bring a very special COVID-related episode. So we're going to talk through all the different things that marketers can be doing, how to react, some tips, some trends that we're seeing in the marketplace, as well as in the general atmosphere and landscape. And today I'm going to be talking with number one PPC expert, Marc Irvine. Hello.
Hi, Michaela. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing as well as anyone really can right now.
It's true.
Firstly, excited to be on. I know that this is our first season, and when we started talking about planning the first season, I was very excited to join. And you originally approached me, and you had a full schedule of guests slotted, and you wanted to get a very specific agenda from everyone. And in my typical fashion, I turned to you and I said, you know what? Let's wait to schedule mine until there's something hot to talk about.
This is all a big construct.
Right, exactly. And I was hoping that this was a Google change or a new ad format or something fun to talk about. But lo and behold, I got my wish, and there is certainly tons to talk about in paid search marketing and the world today.
Yeah, not particularly fun, but
No.
necessary.
Yeah. So it's a very exciting one, and I want to welcome you to my humble home. And my kitchen abroad, and I'm excited to come into your home and excited to be in the homes of everyone else listening to Goal Talk today.
Yeah, as everyone kind of changes to working in their own space, I'm currently in my dad's office back out near my parents' house. So kind of a different landscape for me, different landscape for you. And I mean, everyone's kind of adapting to where they're currently working, to keep everybody, their families and the community safe. So love seeing your kitchen. Marc is our director of strategic partnerships here at WordStream. He was also voted the number one most influential PPC expert by Hannafin, correct? PPC Hero?
Hannafin, PPC Hero, yep. As well as Microsoft. Microsoft made their Influencer of the Year last year as well.
Wow, how exciting.
I know. If I were a horse, they'd be betting on whether or not I got the Triple Crown this year.
Well, we hope you get at least the double next year as well. Can you talk me through, just kind of intro yourself, some of your experience and what your role is at WordStream?
Yeah, so my role is a really interesting one. I've been at WordStream now for about 7 years, and I joined WordStream as our first data scientist. WordStream, as a platform that manages several thousand advertisers, has a unique benefit of having access to see what people are doing in paid search and what people are experimenting and what kind of tests are ultimately successful. But when you have that across thousands of accounts, you're able to get a lot of data quickly to see what kind of trends emerge. My role originally at WordStream was our data scientist, and I was able to go across thousands of accounts and really see what people were reacting to trends in the search, and as Google introduced new changes or as they began to experiment with new ad networks, what made someone successful or where people would often struggle. And that's been, really powerful in terms of how we present content back to the world, but also in terms of how we build our own product to optimize for those trends. Today, I manage our strategic partnerships, so I manage our relationship with Google, with Microsoft, and with Facebook. And so having all of these ad accounts and all of these clients and the agencies that partner with us, it puts us in a really great place to have conversations with these ad networks as they're looking to make changes or as they're reacting to the world as it changes alongside us. So it's a really interesting role, and it's always something to get out of bed and be excited about. There's never a dull day in my job. I'll say that much.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also kind of lead informing the entire WordStream team about changes within each platform, correct?
Yeah, I think that Google looks to make something to the scale of 20,000 changes a year. Microsoft and Facebook are no strangers to, once you get comfortable with something, they like to change things around. So an exciting job.
Yeah. Well, it sounds great. I really thank you for being here. Marc has been responsible for a lot of the resources that WordStream has come out with, both on our blog and in guide form, as well as some of the webinars that we've done around responding to COVID, how marketers can make changes. So we'll link some of those resources. For the YouTube version of this podcast, we'll link them below the video. And then for the podcast version of this, you can check out some of those resources on the landing page at wordstream.com/goal-talk. So, thanks again for being here. I really just kind of want to start out and just talk about how overall, the state of digital has been impacted, some of the search trends that we're seeing, and how things are really changing since all of this has started.
Right. So, of course, the world has changed when I believe the stat right now is half of humanity is under some kind of stay-at-home order. And that behavior has meaningful consequences, not just to the fact that we are physically in one place, but globally there is economic anxiety. We are all changing the way that we are approaching the things that we often take for granted. So that does mean the fact that, okay, we are searching differently. We are searching on different devices at different times with different keywords. And the things that people are responding to are different than they were a month or two ago. So it's quite frankly not even just a digital conversation, but a generic marketing conversation, how you conduct your business right now. People are looking for a very different thing to solve the same kind of problem that they were a month ago. Before we started chatting, before we started recording, Michaela, you just mentioned that you had to bring your car into the shop earlier today, and that was a different kind of challenge today in a world where businesses are not open or they don't physically want you to just like stop in. So you actually have to go and do research, even if you're going to the same auto dealer that you've always gone to. You now have to go do a search online, and you have to figure out whether or not they're open, or if they're willing to have you come in, or how they want you to begin to schedule an appointment to handle that. And that has a huge consequence towards you becoming a customer and how you find businesses online and how you ultimately um, convert. So there's a whole host of changes that businesses are reacting to, as something as small as people not traveling or people searching differently, how that actually impacts your entire marketing strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, talking about that specific use case, I was laughing with my parents earlier because I was in Boston last week and looking to bring my car into a shop. There were a couple dealerships, there were a couple of auto bodies that I had been to previously, and I wanted to see if those places were open because I knew those people. I had gone in before. And I did a Google search of auto body Dorchester while in Dorchester. And my first result was for an auto body in Dorchester, Canada. And I didn't even notice. And I just made an appointment. And then I went to put it into my calendar. It was like, this is going to take you 12 hours to get there.
Yeah, and that's like the perfect example of local is suddenly a completely different world. So let's
Yes.
break down how people are reacting completely different in a COVID world. To start off with, like the thing that we are searching for, we're searching entirely different. If we go back to the most fundamental bit of what you're searching for, all of a sudden we're seeing an emergence of new search trends. Whereas coronavirus is a series of viruses that have always existed, and there's search history going back years on it, but all of a sudden in the last couple of months, coronavirus has become the number one search term on Google search. That's greater than Gmail, that's greater than Amazon, that's greater than Facebook, that's greater than people searching for the weather. And it's suddenly become the number one search. And so we are seeing an emergence of not just searches with coronavirus, but a lot of tangential searches around open or contactless delivery, or even as coronavirus has economic consequences towards all of this, we're beginning to see the emergence of searches around unemployment benefits and um, furlough and different kinds of insurances. And in fact, like in the last month or so, there's been a 500% increase in the search, is McDonald's still open in the United States? And so
Wow.
as an American, that is something that like I had never thought to have searched for before. But lo and behold, like actually the local McDonald's to my East Boston neighborhood is in fact closed due to coronavirus. So all of a sudden there is a whole lot of uncertainty behind whether or not businesses are still open. So people are suddenly looking very, very differently for these things online. In a previous podcast, I heard you use a stat that I love, that traditionally on the Google search, on a typical day, 15% of Google searches have never occurred before. What we're actually seeing during COVID is that number is actually increased to something closer to 25%. So all of a sudden, there's not fewer searches happening before, but they're completely new. And they're searches that a lot of advertisers would not normally think to be a relevant search. If you're McDonald's, you're not certainly thinking that people are going to have curiosity about whether or not you're open. Or if you're your auto shop, you're not thinking about, oh, people might not be confident that I'm open. All of a sudden there are people who are looking for confirmation that the businesses that they frequent are still even operating right now. And if they're people are turning like you're turning to Google search, or people are turning to Bing or to Facebook, and if they're not able to get confirmation of this, they're oftentimes making the assumption that those businesses are closed right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, local listings, no matter what platform you're using, are super pivotal. I know in Boston, like in major cities as well as in small towns, out where my parents live, even beyond the suburbs, the grocery stores are closed multiple days a week now. So it's one of those things where if you only have, if you're only going to go out one day and need to determine where you're going to go to get groceries, you need to have those listings be updated.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that, like as people are searching differently, obviously people are searching differently on different keywords. If we want to talk about the marketing side of this and what our ads say, now we need to look towards updating our ad copy. Of course, there's going to be some fundamentals towards this, that languages are completely different. I used the example of a virus checker going viral meant something completely different a month or two ago than it does today. And I still get ads that were targeted very clearly written for a different time or a different period of time. I got an ad from a local chicken place that read, uh, perfect to share with your friends for the big game. And it was just like the number of words in a very simple headline that was very clearly planned a month ago, but like every single word did not feel good together all of a
Yeah.
sudden. And so it's a reality that we're very aware of it. In fact, not to spoil the magic to our listeners, but occasionally I've recorded webinars or videos in the past and pre-taped them and aired them. I back in January recorded something that was very specific to the travel space, and then launched it in March. That talked about how I was going to head out to China and Italy and Turkey in the next couple of months, and ooh, glad we caught that one before it went live.
I mean,
Um,
the exact same thing with this podcast. Most of it was pre-recorded. And, a lot of it has been, making the disclaimer that a lot of these tips and insights were kind of in more traditional, like marketing spaces.
mhm.
And so we've kind of had to make that amendment. And so, again, really important as to why we're doing this episode now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, about how you go about addressing this with your ads. this is the perfect time to go back and reassess the personas that you're looking to market towards during this period of time. Because quite frankly, even if you have a set persona of who you're looking for, now their sensibilities have changed drastically. That working parent, of course, is still a working parent and they have the same income kind of distribution, feelings, incentives, et cetera, that they traditionally would. But now they also have a whole lot more in concerns on their plate that they are now a working parent that is trying to work full time with kids at home, and that timing and um, how you go about bringing someone into your home to do a service or delivery or what time means to them is very different. The words contactless delivery meant nothing to me 2 months ago, and now they are probably one of the most frequently used things that I say around 6 o'clock. So, how you go about addressing the needs of your ads to those individual personas and their new needs in a COVID world where they are not able to maybe travel, where they're not able to necessarily have people. People are going to be very sensitive towards um, proximity, towards health concerns, and towards your availability, knowing the fact that you've got reduced operations or they might anticipate reduced operations. The benefits of your company right now differ very, very drastically to your competitors too. That if you are still able to do 24/7 delivery, that's fantastic. All of a sudden, a lot of retailers are finding this the fact that their 2-day delivery or even their 7-day delivery means a whole lot more now that Amazon cannot fulfill against its original offering. So there's a lot of things that you normally would not have value propped that suddenly become huge value props in a COVID world. And it makes you and your business and your current operations very unique to the competitors. So you want to go through, you want to review your ads, you want to make sure that you're still testing different ads. And this is a beautiful opportunity to try something like Google's responsive search ads that allow Google to better match that message to that end user and test multiple headlines, multiple descriptions at scale here. So there's a lot more opportunity that advertisers have as searchers' needs differ.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on top of ad copy and testing different offers, is making sure that you're creative in any imagery that you're using in other ads outside of, search specifically are friendly to the circumstance.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't want to reveal anything, but we had a very exciting ad campaign ready for the Olympics this summer. And I just know that that's specifically not something that we can launch right now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, that's super helpful. Outside of, you know, copy, what else do you think is super important to kind of dig into next?
Yeah, so I think that a big thing that's surprising people or is different from what it previously was is Google's leaned in on mobile first in a mobile dominant world for a long period of time. And what people are seeing in a COVID world where, you're in your parents' home right now, I'm in this 500 square foot apartment for the foreseeable future. I'm appreciably less mobile than I was a month ago. And we're seeing the fact that a lot of the loss of Google search is specific to mobile. And Google is really hurting on the fact that, not hurting, but there's a shift on the fact that people are doing fewer mobile searches than they previously were. It's still the majority of searches, but we've actually seen mobile searches decrease about 25% since the COVID world really begun. And that's compared to desktop appreciably a smaller share. So all of a sudden we're having a whole lot more focus on a desktop audience and people who had specific mobile preferred campaigns or mobile dominant campaigns are beginning to adjust to the fact that, well, no one's really mobile. There's not as much incentive to prioritize that audience, and we have to go back to a campaign type that we haven't really focused on in a good number of years.
Yeah, that's really, really smart. So, going back to changing those bidding strategies per device.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. changing your bidding strategies, changing your offer. It's as simple as the fact that the thing that most people are looking for you on is no longer able to make a phone call from it as easily. So that means that the call to action you might have here might not be the same call to action as you previously had. If you previously were looking to push everyone through a phone call, well, people on desktop are more likely to want to schedule an appointment or fill out a form or people can download a white paper from your page. So there's a bit of a different focus, and it's revealing to the fact that people have more time to convert now. And so that's a good pivot to some opportunities for people to begin to think about how they convert people differently as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge one. I know my phone time has actually gone down significantly. I know I've seen a lot of things of people saying that they're spending more time on their phone. Um, but, with working and, I'm spending a lot of time on Netflix, but a lot of that time is no longer on my phone. So I think changing those offers is super important.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that even if you find yourself, hey, a lot of us are going to have different operations during this period of time. If you're a gym, it's going to be very difficult for you can't get new members right now, or you're not going to get the same kind of traditional sign up right now. A lot of what we're seeing businesses do right now is they're refocusing on how can they convert the people who are currently in their funnel. Like, obviously, if people were previously searching for you, interested in a product, just because they're now at home doesn't mean that they're not going to buy your software, or that they're not going to buy this product, or that they're not ultimately at some point in time going to book that trip. But when that conversion happens, is going to be at a later date. So we're seeing a lot of people refocus the audience on who previously engaged with them and how you keep them in the funnel, or how you go about getting these people who already have some interest in joining a gym or making this purchase, and getting them in your database, if that's with a free class or a sign up, or a newsletter or an online offer or something like that, just so that when normalcy returns, you can go about having your sales team begin to reach out to it. What I'm seeing a lot of businesses do, which makes me a little cautious right now, is a lot of businesses are closing up doors, folding their arms, and saying that they're going to wait until we return to normal to begin marketing again. And I get very cautious about that because, of course, if you wait till normal to begin to get people in the door, I mean, it's not just going to be a light switch that you flick on and then everyone who would have normally found you is going to immediately like become a customer on day one. You do still need to build some traffic and some leads, and be prepared for your sales team to hit the phones, your email campaigns to launch, like what have you. Like, how are you going to prep for a month from now or 2 months from now, whenever normal or whatever normal looks like? How are you going to begin to re-engage people who were interested in you at some point in time?
Right. I think staying top of mind, kind of doing what you can to continue to reach out. I know, especially for like bars and restaurants, a lot of, different bars and restaurants in my area, I follow on social. I'm part of their email letters because I frequent their restaurants a lot. And while a lot of them have closed down, or some of them no longer are even offering to-go services, they're still, posting on these platforms, sharing recipes, trying to keep themselves top of mind so that when things, are able to kind of go back to how they were, able to open their doors again, people are kind of still thinking of them first as a place to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talking about, you know, bars and restaurants as an example, I know that there's a huge trend, obviously, as social distancing becomes a huge practice. And I think every state in the US has a stay-at-home order as of now. I want to talk about how people can change their marketing campaigns to no longer be so, store visit focused.
Yeah, there's at the end of the day, this could be a disaster, it could be a renaissance for online businesses. And so this is a beautiful opportunity that if you have not considered an online strategy, if you do not have a website or you do not have the previously had the e-commerce ability or however to attract someone to your website and become familiar with your brand and at least get to consideration of making a purchase, this is the time to do it, as there is no shortage of internet usage. Internet usage is up 50%. We are seeing the fact that local suddenly becomes a priority over these national brands, as Amazon can't fulfill as a lot of these national brands. Like, I'm not going to go 20 miles. I'm not even going to go 2 miles for a service. I'm suddenly stuck very local to the island that is East Boston during all of this. Um, how we go about engaging with our local communities suddenly becomes hyper important in this, because now everyone who is local to you is, quite frankly, your core and only audience in all of this. So if this is something that you had previously relied on a national buyer, you didn't want to compete against other people, be it the Amazons or the McDonald's or the what have you brands out there that were going to go out and drop hundreds of thousands of dollars in ad spend. All of a sudden, a lot of those guys are no longer marketing to the same extent, and your local people are suddenly searching for you. So this is a beautiful intersection where there is opportunity for these brands to become local leaders by getting in front of an audience that they had previously thought that they were unable to compete in. We're actually seeing the fact that a lot of these local advertisers are coming to the Google SERP at the right time, that as a lot of large budgets are being pulled from this, those who are left on Google in an auction system like this are having lower cost per clicks, and they're able to make what seems like seemingly small budgets. I believe in that benchmarks post, something like $25 a day is the daily search budget that we're seeing on Google right now. It's appreciably much more affordable than what a lot of people would normally have assumed it to be. And so we're seeing a lot of small businesses find their way online for the first time during all of this. Of course, not without their hiccups, but um, hopefully finding success as well.
Yeah. And um, again, just because of all of the changes to search patterns and the way that we're using the internet, the way that we're interacting online, it does change the landscape, but it's not kind of bleak outcomes all around for all advertisers. There are, as you're, well aware, and I'd like to talk through the kind of post that the outcomes post that you recently did for us, the different industries that are seeing still a lot of success online in advertising, both on search and on social.
Yeah. So what I'm most excited about in all of this, when I started doing the data, um, the immediate first winner that wasn't clearly obvious was actually nonprofits. Um, People are in a generous mood. Everyone knows that everyone is affected in one way or another, and people are opening up their hearts and wallets. Nonprofits are doing very well. Charities are doing very well for different reasons. Health and medical is doing just fine. Search trends align with that I don't really need to explain. Um, of course, like the stock market, the financial market is up and down. But with that uncertainty, quite frankly, comes a beautiful opportunity that people are still relying on if anything, people are relying more on the services of accountants and financiers during this point in time to begin to help them be successful and navigate uncertainty during all of this. So if that's insurance, if that's tax prep, if that's accounting, there's a whole host of opportunity for a lot of people to go out there and be successful online. What we're seeing is there's plenty of opportunity for people to pivot as well. There are a lot of industries that could very easily be hurt traditionally in an epidemic like this. I'll use real estate as the example, where real estate, no one right now with social distancing and a pandemic out there, no one wants to go around, drive around, look for an open house and walk into a stranger's home with a bunch of people. Um, And so we're seeing, of course, like real estate struggle traditionally in that sense, but real estate agents and brokers are doing very well in this sense because now people are much more excited and much more willing and much more needing to book an appointment and to schedule um, a conversation with a listing or to do a virtual tour or something like that with an agent that can be on the ground without them necessarily having to go and expose themselves to a whole bunch of people. We're seeing a whole lot of people who make that pivot from what they traditionally wouldn't do to maybe a different service offering suddenly become a lot more attractive. Very similarly, like legal right now, there aren't personal injury lawyer cases. There aren't slip and falls. There aren't auto cases, but a lot of people are looking at general counsel completely differently. How do you go about creating a business contingency plan? Or, not to get too morbid, how do you go about creating a will? Things like that. There's a lot of need still in the legal space. It's not traditionally where you may have focused, but if you're able to provide that general counsel, there's a need for it all of a sudden. So as we're watching a lot of businesses make that shift from, well, I previously had done this has always been very profitable for me, to understanding where the market is now and meeting where that market is, it's suddenly very, very interesting to watch people overcome what would be a traditional challenge. We have this one client that previously rented a bunch of like pop-up tents for events and for conferences and sporting events and the like. Like basically, if you named an industry to put them in, they would have been in one of the worst industries to be hurt as people canceled athletic events and conferences and farmers markets, et cetera, et cetera. But what they've done is they've actually changed their model to help set up a bunch of those mobile testing stations and those outdoor medical tents. So not only were they able to meet the market, they've been able to partner with a lot of local hospitals and a lot of local government organizations, but they're also not just sustaining their business, but they're sustaining their community during a time of need.
That's
So it's a very
incredible.
yeah, it's a very interesting way that you can be adaptive towards this and identify a way to repurpose a lot of what your skills and your team's abilities are to be successful during a pandemic.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of different changes that companies have made and pivots. I know of a couple, distilleries and breweries in Boston that have changed to, creating hand sanitizers
Hmm.
to, deliver to local hospitals and to sell to people because, you can't get a hold of hand sanitizers in stores now. So I've
Hmm.
heard of a lot of that. Also, a lot of companies changing that are, historically making shoes or apparel, starting to create, masks and things that they can donate to hospitals, sell to individuals wanting to, have protection when going into populated spaces like grocery stores. Or while just, walking around. So I've seen a lot of those pivots in companies that I, follow and interact with. And I think that that's really great to identify a way that you can kind of help the community and kind of at the same time still sustain, business practice.
Yeah, no, it's both heartwarming and incredible that these people are pivoting so drastically so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows the willingness of companies to be agile and to kind of figure out what they can do to help. I know of a lot of other, companies that are starting to offer access to their programs for free, or different companies that are pushing off payments. And I just think that the way that everything's coming together, if there's a way that your company can help, um, not only will it help the community and those that you're kind of pivoting to support, but it'll also really keep your business top of mind when people, are able to kind of resume with as much normalcy as possible. I know that those companies that I've seen kind of pivot and adapt will be those that I want to, purchase from first or support in other endeavors. So
Yeah, certainly. So there's like a value to, of course, what they're doing right now, but they're also creating this brand value that hopefully last in their local communities and who they reach beyond the immediate March, April, however long time frame. But they're going to be part of that business long term, and the customers that you acquire today are very likely going to remain loyal customers, far more loyal than what you would typically acquire. So maybe there's a lot to play into a customer lifetime value here. So it's still a point in time where it's worth the marketing to go and acquire new customers, be that with your paid campaigns or be that with your content or your organic or however you choose to approach acquiring customers today.
Absolutely. One thing I wanted to also talk about is kind of cross network strategies that people can be adopting. I've heard you talk a lot about new opportunities to grow within different channels, and I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts behind that and some insights you have there.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because what's not the case is that like you have fewer customers, you have fewer prospective customers. Even as people search differently on Google, they're still out there, and in fact, they're more online than ever. What we're actually seeing right now is a lot of interesting trends where Google search is taking the brunt of the negative consequences and loss of mobile traffic, people doing fewer searches on their platform. But that's not the case on Bing. We've actually seen that, of course, fewer people are doing searches on Bing, but as we work more on desktop computers and as most of us work on PCs, we're consequently using these Windows-powered devices to do more Windows-powered searches through Bing. And so there's actually stability and, in fact, maybe even a growing market share of Bing in the United States during the pandemic, that a lot of our customers are actually seeing more stable results on Bing than they would traditionally, because of that. Beyond just search, though, search is of course taking a hit as a whole with Google, but as you look across where people are spending more time online, people are spending more time online browsing the internet, watching videos, and scrolling through social. So we're seeing uh, display take a significant uptick during this period of time. We're actually seeing display inventory and customers grow at this point in time, up about 13% since the beginning of the pandemic. Gmail, that's up about 20%. And YouTube, that's up about 30%.
Wow.
On Facebook, as people begin to get across, break down the barriers of, oh, my persona, my customers aren't on Facebook. Yes, they are. In fact, they're spending more time on Facebook than ever before right now. We're seeing the fact that people are spending about 50% more time on Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and the like than they previously were to the pandemic, as like particularly Messenger growth is almost, I believe, increased something like 75% month over month in the March.
Yeah.
Like there is significant uptick in growth on that. And so it doesn't necessarily need to be an expensive, costly brand buy that you go out to and do on Facebook, but even if you just look towards remarketing or just broadcasting the fact that you're open to your local market or to your fans or your followers, a buy across that network suddenly has immense ROI just in terms of how you go about engaging with those people. I think that one thing that a lot of people are becoming aware of is the fact that no one wakes up in the morning one day and comes to the conclusion that they need an air fryer, and then does a Google search for it. That at some point in time, you have to expose a customer to a video ad or a display ad or a Gmail ad or a social ad or what have you to get them interested in that to later at some point in time do a Google search or a Bing search or however you choose to search. And how you go about exposing new customers to your brand is still valuable during this time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super interesting. I can imagine that, as people have more time, as you said, people are browsing, the opportunity for display to come up is, much higher. But, that YouTube stat and the Facebook stat are super interesting to me. The fact that people are, really spending their time on these platforms in this time where they have to spend a lot of time at home. So I do think it's really important to take advantage of If you're trying to be more efficient or make smart decisions with how you're spending your money and what you're trying to get out of them during this time, I really think that looking to those cross-channel networks is super important.
Yeah, and it has a huge consequence on even just in terms of the ROI you get from Google. The fact that if people are finding you on Facebook and then coming back and searching on Google, that's something that we've seen a whole lot outside of the realm of COVID-19. As people spend more time outside of Google and they get exposed to your brand, I expect to see more and more of that those companies that are investing in that top of funnel metrics while there's tons of inventory and while that inventory is so cheap right now, it's going to have immense ROI, not just throughout the next month, but throughout the following year as people begin to go through that funnel.
Yeah, absolutely. Super good point. Another thing I want to quickly touch on, and we'll leave some links as we said, but a couple of just quick points. If you could just kind of talk through some of the financial relief that's available. I know that there are a ton of resources out there for this already. And I know that we have a pretty comprehensive post on the CARES Act specifically, and the Paycheck Protection Program from our colleague Elaine Stone. So we'll include that resource as well, but I just kind of wanted to get a brief overview of what's available for small businesses to take advantage of, to kind of keep their lights on during this time.
Yeah, so one thing that we at WordStream, as we talk to customers, it's become abundantly clear that so many people are paid search is a challenge. It is not even top of mind for a lot of small businesses at this point in time. So how do you go about getting in front of acquiring loans and capital just to bridge the gap that you might expect in the next couple of months is fundamental to them. So at the very top of the list is the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, was passed by Congress about 2 weeks ago. Effectively, you can go through, follow the blog post in the link below, and what it will do is it allows you to cover expenses up to 2.5 months of payroll, to cover expenses related to payroll, rents, utility, essentials, and that loan is planned to be forgiven. So this isn't even necessarily, it's written as a loan, but it's more treated like a grant through Congress today. Beyond that, the Small Business Administration has loans at up to 10 million at a relatively low interest rate. I believe it's 3.5% for small businesses, 2.75 for nonprofit. And those are loans, but up to $10 million at a negligible interest rate is quite frankly a dream. And that can be used for any kinds of costs associated related to COVID-19. And then beyond that, it's very fine to begin to think about, like, obviously this all began at the onset of tax season. Um, Obviously the IRS has postponed its tax collection by 90 days to the middle of summer, but beyond that, the IRS is offering additional tax credit and consideration deferment for those businesses that were particularly impacted by COVID-19. So as you look at, of course, planning your marketing budget and planning how you run your business, money is a thing. And how you go about fronting what might be losses in the next couple of months. There is a lot of financial assistance through programs like the SBA, the PPP, the IRS, and countless local organizations have been set up during this period of time.
Yeah, which is great. And I think the resources available for small businesses, as we've said, small businesses make up such a large part of our economy. And I think the steps there to kind of protect small businesses have been helpful. So if any of those resources seem like they'll be helpful to you and you want more information, as Marc said, we'll leave those links below to give you some more information and more resources there. One last kind of final thing, we've briefly touched on local and how important it is to keep those updated. Anything else within Google My Business that you think that like outside of hours that just like really, really need to be updated or communicated? Anything there?
Yeah, from a Google My Business perspective, I think that this is the perfect opportunity that if you haven't claimed Google My Business, go and claim it, update your hours. And Google is in fact encouraging every business to make a minimum of one post, just exclaiming the fact that they are open during COVID-19 or what their operations or what their expectations would look like. So if you are not having people come into your physical store, but you want to, if pickup is through a window or they're doing delivery or what have you, Google wants you to specifically post that. And even if that is a different expectation than you would normally do, a lot of the things that Google My Business would normally penalize you for reducing your operations during this period of time, Google is waiving those penalties because they want to make sure that you have the most accurate and updated information so that people don't go outside and come to a location and discover something different. So a lot of the things you'd be more hesitant to do previously in Google My Business, go ahead, do it. More broadly, as you have new operations, if there's a new telephone, if you're working from home, update your telephone number. If you're now doing teleconferencing for your services or your appointments or what have you, there are now new teleconferencing links to include in that. Um, this is the perfect opportunity. Like as your businesses change, your Google My Business should also change. So this is just important to go up there, be upfront with it. The changes you make right now may be temporary. It is fine that they're temporary. I would just say be the most honest with Google during this point in time. Google isn't looking to penalize you. They're doing everything that they can from a public standpoint to make sure that searchers get the most accurate and the most useful information at this point.
Awesome. Yeah. So changing those, or claiming your Google My Business, changing those hours, and updating any, locations or phone numbers, but also like making sure that your website's linked, making sure that all of those things are, up to date is super, super important. Thank you so much for your time, Marc. I really appreciate it. Is
Yeah.
there any like overarching one last takeaway or anything that we didn't discuss that you think is super important for small businesses or marketers trying to kind of navigate this time?
I mean, small businesses, marketers, however you want to put this, I think it's very fine for us all to take one big breath. It is going to be weeks, if not months, of this, and that's overwhelming to all of us. It doesn't matter if you're new to paid search or you're new to marketing or you're the most influential person in paid search. We're all going to hit a roadblock or we're all going to feel overwhelmed at some point in time. Even if you're stuck inside at any point in time, it's very appropriate to take a breath, step away from your laptop, and come back with a fresh mind. Make decisions based off of data, not based off of your gut reaction during this period of time, and you'll do a lot better.
Yeah, it's really great advice. And again, I know we've mentioned this a couple of times. We do have these resources, a lot of them that Marc's, done the research on and written the posts for. So we'll make sure to link those below. Also, a lot of data resources for you to make decisions about new COVID-19 benchmark data to kind of base changes in your account off of. Also search trends, a lot of kind of new strategies for both search and social. So we'll make sure to link all of those below. And again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. Hope I can get you back on at some point.
I hope I can see you in Boston at some point.
Yeah, that's true. Would like to see you in person at some point as
Yeah.
well. But thank you again. Everyone, make sure you're following Gold Talk Podcast on Twitter. And we will catch you next week for an episode all about ad copy. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye.